Okay, I don't know if this is live yet, but I'm going to start talking as if it is live. If you're tuning in right now, this is the first video that I have shot in my new kind of video space. It's not built out here. I'm even facing the wrong wall, but I'm actually in the process of transitioning where I shoot to a new room. And yeah, this is the first thing that I'm using that space for. So as we go into this, you can ask me anything. My wife, hey, you over there? She's over there. She's going to be running the chat room. So as you got questions, throw them in there. And we will do our best to answer as many of those as is possible. If you throw a super chat in there, we will definitely take your question. We'll definitely answer your question and give you a big shout out. And we are very appreciative whenever you are able to do that. So this is very fun and exciting because like I'm in a new space and a new room that I have room. Like it's normally I'm in a very crowded space. And yeah, this is very cool what we've been working on to kind of take the channel to the next level. And there you go. So I've been talking for a little bit now. We got some people and some questions. Want to start kick things off?
How do you think they will introduce Adam Warlock?
I don't really know. I don't actually have really any theories at all because of where Infinity War ends. It just kind of has kind of one of these, like, you just don't, it kind of clears the field. You just don't know what they're doing at this point in time, because the thought could be that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 takes place before Infinity War, or it could be it takes place after Infinity War Part 2, and in which case it kind of changes everything out. What we do know is that Adam Warlock is some way related to the Sovereign and their vengeance scheme against the Guardians for Rocket's stupidity. So... but beyond that, I don't have too many theories because we're just kind of in the situation of they just kind of dropped such a large bomb at the end of Infinity War that it's tough to speculate.
Do we do spoilers?
Spoiler
questions?
Yeah, I don't want to do spoiler questions yet, so we might go into some spoiler question type stuff eventually, but I don't want to. I want to kind of give people a heads up. I don't want to be responsible for spoiling Infinity War for anyone. So try to be safe with your spoilery type stuff.
Got a super chat?
Got a super chat. Thank you.
Awesome Dude 900. DC or Marvel?
The answer I usually give on the DC versus Marvel question is I like the DC heroes more. The Batman, Superman, just are archetypes that are so much stronger as for me, what I like in comic book characters, just the archetype that they stand for resonates a lot more with me. But Marvel has just been killing it with the movies. And so when it comes to movies, I would definitely fall on that side. But when it comes... someone's laughing at me. But so that's kind of where I'm kind of at. Like it's what makes the DCEU so frustrating for me is that they're just making such odd decisions, and Marvel is taking, Guardians of the Galaxy about a talking raccoon and a talking tree that says "I am Groot" and making a great movie out of it, and DC is struggling to do a Justice League movie. And as we just kind of look at it and you go, what? I don't know what's going on over the WB, but I think that the characters on the DC side resonate more with me.
I need to ask you a technical question real quick.
Technical question.
It's not letting me post chat. Like, I can't chat. I can see everybody, but I can't respond to anything.
I don't have an answer for you on that one.
Okay, well, then just tell them I'm not going to be able to say anything. I'm just reading it.
Okay, so apparently my wife is unable to respond to chat things. Let me just see if I'm able to post anything over here. You have a question for me?
Who's your favorite version of the Joker?
Favorite version of the Joker? I did a video on this, I don't know, a month ago, where I ranked the Jokers, and so I kind of went through all the different versions of them. For me, really, Mark Hamill, Jack Nicholson, and Heath Ledger, all three of them did the version of the Joker they were trying to do so well that I don't like to pick a favorite out of the bunch of them because they're doing something different in their portrayal. And Jack Nicholson couldn't have done what Heath Ledger did. Heath Ledger couldn't have done what Jack Nicholson did. And Mark Hamill's kind of just blown the whole thing up with doing voice work. So it's tough for me to say, but I think I'd kind of have to go with Heath Ledger. But at the same time, Mark Hamill's phenomenal too. So it's tough to say, but that's kind of the sort of answer that I would give to that question.
Whose beard is better, Cap or Thor?
Better beard. Thor is the original beard. Thor, I think I got to go with Thor on the beard question. Yeah, I mean, it's a classic, legendary beard, Thor's. So yeah.
Favorite Stanley Kubrick movie?
Favorite Kubrick movie. I love the first half of Full Metal Jacket with the guy that passed away about a month ago. There's a movie he did in the 50s called The Killing that I was a big fan of. But I've never been one that's been just gaga for Stanley Kubrick movies. He's a little bit too weird for me. So I need to watch them now as a reviewer guy and kind of be able to soak them in and appreciate them a little bit more. But I've never been one that's just kind of been nuts for him like so many other people are. And even I reviewed The Shining with Cody Leach last fall. And yeah, I'm not... I appreciate it. I can see all the greatness in it. I don't think it's a bad movie, but it's just not a movie that I'm like, this is incredible. That's just never been me.
Super chat.
Super chat. Thank you.
Awesome Dude 900.
Awesome Dude 900. What do we got?
Favorite YouTuber? Question mark.
Favorite YouTuber? Oh, God, that's a tricky one. I'd have to list off a bunch of different types of things that I watched. Honest trailers are, of course, just hilarious and clever and witty and able to do. In people in kind of my space, I've always been a huge fan of John Campea, and I just think he has great analysis of films and big picture type thinking. There's a new up-and-comer guy called Cut Short that does these videos on movies that didn't get made. I love those ones. Philip DeFranco's channel, I enjoy his stuff for the not movie news, but for the news, what he talks about them. Those are the ones that kind of quickly come to mind that I want to mention. So yeah, those are the ones that I think about.
What do you think about Cloak and Dagger?
I don't have any thoughts on Cloak and Dagger. I haven't even seen the trailer for it. I'm not familiar with the comic book material, so I do not have thoughts on Cloak and Dagger at all. In the general sense, though, I'm getting a little bit nervous that there's a few too many comic book TV shows to where I can't, keep up with them, and there's just so much stuff going on, and they're putting everything out there. And if you can't get one of the main heroes, you're doing kind of a side character. And so there's just a bit much for me right now. So I'm not going to be able to keep up with all of it, unfortunately. Even when there wasn't as many, I was able to keep up with it, with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and some of that stuff.
Which, I can't say the first one. Which is the better weapon? The hammer? Thor's hammer? I can't say the name.
Mjolnir?
Or Stormbreaker?
It seemed to imply that Stormbreaker is some sort of new legendary weapon. And it's got Groot in the mix, so, I think I'm going to go with Stormbreaker, even though Mjolnir is a little bit more iconic.
Do you think Ant-Man 2 will affect Avengers 4, and do you want a Black Widow movie?
Do I think it will affect Avengers 4? My theory on Ant-Man and the Wasp is that it'll end with him going subatomic or something like that. And having some sort of reason that he's kind of out of the picture besides he was on house arrest. And that's how he'll kind of show up in the next one and be kind of protected from some of the stuff that happened. That's my theory. And whether that's kind of where the movie ends or a post-credit scene, there'll be some bridge in it that will take us to where Avengers 4 will pick up. I think there's been set photos showing Paul Rudd in them. So my impression that I got, and I don't follow a lot of the I don't want to know a lot of the stuff about set photos and things like that. That's not my thing, because I don't want it spoiled for me. But I think I was of the impression that he's going to be in Avengers 4 and prominently, based on the set photos that I'm aware of. And so I think so. I think there's going to be some tie-in at the end of it. And I was expecting something like that, even in the trailers, to give us some hint of how the things bridge together, or confirming that Ant-Man and the Wasp happened before Infinity War, but we didn't really get that.
She's kicking me.
Oh.
Super chat.
We got a super chat. Thank you.
I think Malachi Mohan. I'm sorry.
Malachi Mohan, we believe.
Do you you remember when you sang me happy birthday?
Do I remember when I sang you happy birthday? I think I do. Wasn't that a month ago or so? A few 3 weeks ago? Yeah, and it was your birthday, and so then I sang you a quick happy birthday, and
your amazing vocal.
Pretty sure it's not your birthday today, so I'm not going to sing you happy birthday today, but I do remember that it was your birthday.
Thoughts on Deadpool working with Celine Dion?
I haven't seen it yet. I actually just... so if you're tuning in just now and didn't hear this, like right now I'm in my new office space and there's a wall right there that we just painted. And so while we were doing all the work painting, I was watching the John Campea show and he kept talking about this Deadpool Celine Dion thing, but I haven't watched it yet.
He even told you to stop watching his show.
Yeah, he even in the thing I was watching, he told me I needed to stop watching his show to go watch it, and I didn't because I was working and taping the wall, so I didn't spill paint in the wrong place, which I did anyway. Yeah. So I don't have thoughts on it because I haven't watched it yet, but it's like on my list of things that I need to do today because John Campea told me that I need to do that. So there you go. And once again, if you just didn't pick up what I just said and you just tuned in, we built a new office space in our house. We closed in, so I have a new studio space that will debut fairly soon. We're working on building things out, and I'm currently transitioning. That's why there's a very blank wall behind me because it's not built out yet. What do we got?
Do you have a guilty pleasure movie? Favorite guilty pleasure movie?
Favorite guilty pleasure movie? Actually, one that kind of came to mind. I don't know. I don't feel guilty about the movies that I like. Generally speaking, I just watch whatever I want to watch, and I don't think about them as guilty pleasure movies. And I don't think that people should feel guilty about enjoying a movie. Unless it's immoral or something like that. But like I was doing my ranking of the Karate Kid movies, and I realized I watch Karate Kid 3 a lot. Like, it's a movie that I put on way more often than I should because it's not a good movie. It's like a mess of a movie. So that's one that kind of comes to mind. All sorts of 80s action movies, kind of schlocky stuff. Those types of things would probably fall in that category for a lot of people that they would call guilty pleasure movies. That I love that stuff. The late 80s, early 90s martial arts stuff, Van Damme, Seagal, all that stuff. I love it. And that would be the stuff that would come to mind.
Can you just remind them that I can't text back and I'm sorry? But...
Yeah, so right now, for something's going on that we're not, like, we can't sit reply to you guys at all via text.
I can view all their stuff, but I can't send a message.
I just typed something in there, and if some letters kind of came in from me, that was me.
Did
just.
It work?
I don't know. Can you see it? We're having technical issues that she can't write anything, so she can't respond to you. Normally, she's responding to stuff, but she is reading everything you say. Yeah. What do we got?
Are you going to review Real Steel?
The movie with Hugh Jackman from 5-6 years ago?
I have no idea.
I don't know if that's the right one or not. Whatever Real Steel is, not anytime soon. I have not seen it. We haven't seen it yet. I'm sure I would enjoy it. I like Hugh Jackman and I like robots, so it seems like something I would enjoy. But like movies like that, if I were to review it now, it would be kind of like this odd offshoot thing that would feel out of place on my channel. That 10 people, a fraction of the number of people that check out most of my content would check out that video. And so it's a little bit tricky for me to review kind of random things like that. And as I'm figuring out as I learn what I'm doing on YouTube.
Are you a full-time YouTuber?
No. I have I deliver paint for a living. Actually, is what I do. I drive a...
Oh my god!
Sorry about that.
Oh
I've had a cold the last week, and I was hoping that I'd be able to make it through this without freaking out. But so I actually drive a big, gigantic box truck delivering paint during 40 hours a week, and then I do YouTube at nighttime in my free time. This is kind of just a hobby to me. Now, it's a hobby that's become very successful, and we're very much considering transitioning. What would that look like? Making things happen, even being able to build out this wall, make a new office space is all somewhat tied to this idea that we're transitioning towards. This is what I do full time, but I have a full-time job that I working with a big corporation delivering paint. And so that's where sometimes I get comments from people like, hey, why isn't your editing better? Or things like that. I'm like, what? Because I deliver paint for a living. Like, this is not my full-time job. Like, I'm not a big corporation or anything like this. This is literally, I started this less than 2 years ago. I'm shooting on a webcam right now. And it's just growing very fast, which is awesome. And I'm doing everything I can to keep improving my quality and definitely want to go full-time. But I'm a paint delivery driver. What do we got next?
Super chat, Awesome Dude 900. Fantastic Four or X-Men in MCU?
Awesome, dude. Thank you for all the super chats. He asked, do I want Fantastic Four or X-Men in the MCU? My thought is that's Phase 4. That's my thought for what Phase 4, the MCU, could be, would be, should be, is that we kind of go through all Infinity War, kind of big reset kind of things, probably take out a few of our major characters, and then we come out on the other side, and we still got Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, but then the new franchises in Captain Marvel, then we bring in the new ones, which are Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and just kind of adds this whole, that's what makes it, how do you top doing Infinity War? How do you top doing Civil War? You bring in the X-Men. You bring in the Fantastic Four with Kevin Feige shepherding it so it's not insane and weird. And that's my thought for what they do. How do you make it better? That's what you do. And then maybe at the end of Phase 4, at the end of Phase 5, you do some sort of big, gigantic event movie. You get Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans to come back. These are my sorts of thoughts. How do you keep upping things? There you go. That's what you could do. But that's to say I want both. And I think they probably will do both. I want a hard reboot of the X-Men universe. It's been 20 years. The first X-Men movie debuted in the year 2000. 20 years is a good amount of time to do a hard reboot into the modern era of comic book movies with Kevin Feige and all of the brilliance that is the MCU. I would be all for that.
Okay, we're getting a lot of Infinity War questions. We're not doing spoiler answers right now, right? You reiterate that, but someone said something that isn't really a spoiler that I think is funny.
Okay.
Why is Gamora?
Why is Gamora? So in about 10 minutes, I'll kind of do a big spoiler deal, and then we can start talking take a few questions.
We're not ignoring you.
Yeah, we're not ignoring you. We just don't. I don't want to spoil Infinity War for anyone, so that's why
Thanos demands your silence.
Thanos demands your silence, so that's why I'm intentionally trying to be careful with that. We can take a few of those in a little bit, but at the moment, I don't want to go spoilery just yet. Super chat. What do we got?
Malachi Mohan.
Yeah.
Who do you think should play the Fantastic Four?
Oh, that's tough. I've heard some talk on doing the John Krasinski and Emily Blunt for Mr. Fantastic and Miss Fantastic. I think that's pretty fun. What do you get for Grimm on the thing? The Thing.
Oh.
Ben Grimm. I don't have one that. And then who would be our young Johnny Storm? Maybe a Zac Efron.
What? I really liked Chickless.
See, it's tough because I thought Chickless just kind of, while those movies weren't great, Chickless seemed like the perfect Ben Grimm, and he loved playing the part. I don't normally like to bring actors back, but I don't have someone that's coming to mind for him.
You could do Batista. It'd be pretty similar to what he's already doing.
Yeah, but he's already in the MCU.
You can't tell it's him.
You couldn't get Batista playing two characters in the same universe. Maybe Zac Efron. But he's doing Black Adam though for DC, so we're running out of these big guys. So there we go. I think those are what your guesses for who I'd go with.
Super chat.
What do we got?
Red Blade 09. Will Infinity War affect the Marvel Netflix series?
No, in the one sense, because they exist in the same reality, they exist in the same universe, but in only the most vague senses. Just how the timelines line up is very unclear. They talk about the incident in New York, they talk about the big green guy, they talk about Captain America and his shield, but they don't get into plot details. They don't talk about the Sokovia Accords. They don't dive into anything specific, and so there's not meaningful connections between them. So I don't think there's going to be much of a tie, especially by the end of when whatever happens in the next one. It's not. I don't imagine that the MCU is actually going to kill half the universe, and so that's going to be undone in the next movie. And so I would assume it's probably not even going to be referenced on the Marvel Netflix stuff is my guess, because they just don't have a lot of connections between them.
2 super chats.
Got 2 super chats. Thank you.
Toy Review City wants to know your favorite movie.
Favorite movie? I don't tend to like to do favorites. Back in January, I did a video. It was like my 10 favorite movies. But I mean, you go Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Richard Donner's Superman 1 and 2, Die Hard, Aliens, Terminator 2.
Good choice.
So a lot of Spielberg, a lot of James Cameron, a lot of 80s. That's my favorite type of stuff. Back to the Future. Those are my favorites.
Vincent left from Boise.
Yeah.
What YouTube accounts do you watch for inspiration?
For inspiration, probably the one that for trying to ideas for what I'm going to do in the future would probably be like Philip DeFranco. But when it comes to trying to figure out how to do my style and video stuff, I don't like to watch other YouTubers to try and figure out what to do, because then I just look like other YouTubers. And I don't want to watch Jeremy Johns, Chris Stuckman, John Campia, and take inspiration from them in that sense, because then I just start kind of parroting them. So like one of the things I'm doing right now is I signed up for, there's a thing I get advertisements on Facebook and everything for masterclass.com. So I started going through masterclass.com because they've got a course by Aaron Sorkin, Martin Scorsese, Ron Howard, and Samuel L. Jackson teaches acting. And so I'm learning about how screenwriters think about screenwriting, directors think about directing, to take inspiration to think about movies and acting better. And I'm reading Leonard Maltin's movie guide to try and you figure out the language that he uses to talk about movies as someone that's been writing movie reviews for 40 years, however long he's been doing it. And so reading the language and trying to think, how can I expand my vocabulary for talking about movies? But I kind of don't want to just look at what other YouTubers are doing and try and do what they're doing. I tend to want to veer away from even what I'm doing when people start to do what I'm doing. Because I just don't want to be just what everyone else is. So try to keep growing, learning. Is anyone you would say that I watch for inspiration?
No, I think what you said is true.
Yeah, that would probably be the best way to think about it. I watch a lot of YouTubers and have a lot of friends of mine that I watch, but it's not necessarily to inspiration to learn from how to do it. Yeah, it's because I enjoy it. I like their perspective, but it's not inspiration. Super chat. What do we got?
Jared Cressy, would you rank your top 10 movie franchises?
All right, Jennifer, you gotta help me on this one.
Oh,
You watch MCU, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Die Hard, Back to the Future. She's giving me faces like I've lost my mind.
Well, no, you changed your fingers. That was why.
So, Dark Knight.
Did you say Back to the Future?
Yeah, I said Back to the Future. Dark Knight.
Terminator. Superman. Did you say that? No, not a favorite.
I mean, all of them are tricky because Die Hard went off the rails. And Superman went off the rails. Did I say Jurassic Park?
Nuh-uh.
And I don't even know if I'd put it in there. It's like one great movie and then other stuff. What else we got? Twilight, of course. Twilight, and then when I'm in a saucy mood, 50 Shades. No, I haven't watched any of those movies yet. So I don't necessarily have one that comes to mind. You might notice I didn't say Lord of the Rings. I've never been a big Lord of the Rings fan. That's never been me. I'm not going to trash them. I'm not going to, it's not that. It's just not, it didn't resonate with me the way it did other people. Likewise with Harry Potter. Harry Potter's not my thing. It's her thing. And so she loves Harry Potter. She puts Harry Potter on all the time. I've never been this person that super resonated with Harry Potter. Not trashing it. I'm not a hater or anything like that. It's just not the thing that's resonated with me. So those are some of the ones that would come to mind of kind of the greats for me.
Okay, I missed a super chat. There's
Oh.
multiple, so I got one out of order. Awesome Dude 900. Should the MCU make an R-rated Moon Knight movie?
So awesome, dude. Thank you for all the super chats. Should the MCU make an R-rated Moon Knight movie? Absolutely not. Should they do a Netflix Moon Knight series? Absolutely yes. And the reason for this is that the MCU, the reason that they're so successful is they have a brand that you know pretty well how far they go. And that, like, you know, we've got a 6-year-old, and you know, we had a lot of discussion as could I take him to Black Panther, and I ended up taking him to Black Panther. It's the first big boy movie he ever got to go see, and so that was a lot of fun. But like, there's a couple MCU movies that would be definitely we wouldn't think that would be right for him to go see, but a lot of them they are able to watch most of those movies at his age, and they've got a brand where you know what they do, and you mess the brand up when you throw in, well, in this one, you know, people get their throats slit, and I mean, with all the things that, you know, suddenly this one's Game of Thrones except the MCU. That doesn't work. But that's what's so great about having the Marvel Netflix stuff. They have their own brand, which is to say, it's kind of this middle point between R and PG-13. It's very gritty. It's very violent. There's a good bit of sexual content, but it's not Game of Thrones sexual content. There's language, but it's not HBO language. And so that's what they do over there. And that's what they do very well. And likewise, Moon Knight isn't, as an R-rated property, isn't something that would do the numbers that Marvel wants their movies to do. However, that's something that they can do inside of kind of this pocket Marvel Netflix universe that's part of the MCU, but not necessarily the full MCU. Likewise, that's where I think they should do with Blade as well. They should bring Blade into the Marvel Netflix stuff. I'd be all for that. That'd be my take on it.
Tyler Roberts, Infinity War or The Dark Knight?
I'd have to give it more time. I would guess time will still keep The Dark Knight on top, but they're difficult to compare on several different levels because they're ambitious in different ways. They're doing very different things. And, you know, when you're doing this one that's this intergalactic war bringing all these franchises together versus the brilliance and the limitation of the Nolan films is that it is an isolated Batman universe. That, like, when people are like, they should bring Superman into the Nolan universe. No, they shouldn't. That would ruin the Nolan universe. The Nolan universe exists and works because it's a pocket universe. What do we got over here?
Adam Grunther, who do you think would be a good overarching MCU villain to replace Thanos?
Why did you want me to? Why were you cutting me off on that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
I was in the middle
There's
of
a
it.
countdown or something. I
So,
don't know. I'm so sorry. Just ignore me on purpose.
Sorry, I've got a cold if you're just tuning in. So I don't know. I have to give Infinity War another year before I kind of start talking about it. One of them I've been watching for 10 years. One I watched a week ago, and I've watched it 2 times. And they're very different. I would imagine The Dark Knight will probably come out on top, but I don't know. And I think that whatever they do with Part 2 of Infinity War, that will also be a thing that will kind of shape how that all plays out. Now, our question over here was...
I don't know what just happened, but who do you think would be a good overarching MCU villain to replace Thanos?
All right, so once Thanos is out of the picture, who's the next overarching villain? Galactus would be kind of an obvious pick for if you bring the Fantastic Four into it. If you bring the X-Men into it, you can do some stuff with Magneto, and it becomes less about the universe is in peril, but you have social unrest and the way society is working, and it takes it a very different direction for the idea of a big bad guy. Those are a couple that would come to mind from me as to what you could do. Because what I don't think that you want to try and do is Thanos was big and powerful, so let's get even more powerful. Like, you can't just try and keep making bigger and bigger. You have to find different angles to come at it to make it more personal or different in the way you do drama, the way you up the stakes. Super chat, what do we got?
Rich Reviews says, sorry for being late. My 2 anticipated movies this summer are Deadpool and the Mr. Rogers documentary. No question. But follow-up question to that from Rich Reviews. How did you feel about the Good Doctor finale? We haven't seen it yet, have we?
I'm not. No, I think it was like a while ago. I mean, it was like 2 months ago. So, what did I think about the Good Doctor finale? Honestly, I don't remember what happened because it was like a couple months ago. Where did it end? Because they had several different dramatic finishes. I guess to give you your answer to the question, we watched it whenever it debuted a month or two ago. I don't remember exactly where it ended because there were several just kind of different dramatic shuffles in the last few episodes. My take on the second half of the season is it felt like they veered too much towards big dramatic moments. They were trying so hard into the melodrama, and I wasn't crazy about a lot of that stuff. They kept pushing certain things and moving away from it being a hospital drama, and so I was frustrated by a lot of that. But being that whatever the finale was a month ago didn't make an impact on me to be able to remember at this moment, then again, I'm answering a lot of questions and was caught off guard by it. But it didn't make a big enough impact that either one of us seems to remember what it was.
I just can't think about it while I'm reading all this stuff. I don't remember. Sorry.
I don't have a specific answer except to say it didn't make an impact on me, so there you go.
Rewind, replay.
Is it a super chat?
Yes.
Super chat.
Yes.
All right.
Will you still collab with other YouTubers?
Will I still collaborate with other YouTubers? And Rewind Replay, thank you guys so much for your support and for your friendship, and we've been great buddies over the last little bit. Will I still collaborate? Yeah. I mean, I'm got a thing with Ryan O'Toole coming up soon. Just talking about Durban, about shooting something in a few days. So there's, yeah, I'm had shot something with Almost Sideways and Men vs. Movies a couple weeks back that hasn't aired yet. So I've got a number of different things in the works. It's tricky because, well, just obviously I have my own channel, but trying to generate content while trying to build out an office space while having a pregnant wife, my time's limited. But I still try and collaborate with people when I can, and I just mentioned 3 things that I've got kind of going on right now. So yeah, absolutely, I'm still kind of collaborating with people, and yeah, there you go.
Okay, I really don't know what this thing is. There's like a countdown, but Italian Otaku 710.
Italian Otaku.
Italian.
Italian. What?
I'm so sorry we butchered that. How do you think the Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel movies will impact the MCU and set up Avengers 4?
Well, I'm pretty sure both of them take place before Infinity War. Captain Marvel, I believe, takes place in the 90s, is what they're saying. And so there's even been set photos of Samuel L. Jackson with a full head of hair.
Goodness.
Sorry about that. If you're tuning in just now, I've got a cold, so I've had a couple of these times where I've broken out into coughing. So I think that Captain Marvel will be more just establishing Captain Marvel as a very powerful character that can potentially save the day for all of this. I don't think it will have big universe unraveling type things. I'm sure the post-credit scene will be like this cool bridge where we're like, oh, I see where that's going. Or it'll be her receiving the message that was sent to her. Actually, I don't want to go into too many spoiler type things, but it'll be something that's a cool bridge into it. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I said this earlier in this, I believe that they'll probably, my theory, I don't know how likely this is. This is just my theory. That there'll be something about maybe him going subatomic at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp or something like that. So he's actually kind of disappeared, and that's why he's able to reappear later on in Infinity War. Something like that. I could be totally off base. As it turns out, I did a video predicting who would die in Infinity War. Very wrong for now. But what do we got next?
Super chat.
Super chat.
Rich reviews. How would you rank Gilmore Girls seasons?
All right. How would I rank the Gilmore Girls seasons? Oh, that's tough.
Goodness, I can't even remember.
So, if you don't know this, I actually was the person that turned my wife onto watching Gilmore Girls. I started watching Gilmore Girls on my own before, as a single guy in his early 20s, and then got married. I was like, oh, you should check out the Gilmore Girls. And then, so now, we've watched through the Gilmore Girls several different times. Yeah, I haven't watched them recent enough to be able to give you a good ranking of them, but I would.
Bad idea for a video.
I have to rewatch all of them. It would be something like 5 and 6 and 7, like the later ones would probably be some of the lower ones, or maybe some, I don't know. I couldn't do it. I'm just making stuff up. I would guess maybe the first 3 were kind of like the prime era for me, with Milo, Victor Miglia in there from This Is Us, and competing with Dean from Supernatural. Those would probably be the prime era for me. And then, the revival a year ago, that was good, but it wasn't great. So I would probably tend to say generally the earlier stuff would be at the top, middle stuff is in the middle, and later stuff is at the bottom. But it's been too long for me to rank them.
Oh, I guess there's technically 9 now because of the Netflix one.
That'd be 8.
Oh. Okay.
There's 7 on the original.
Right the first time. What is your most anticipated superhero movie coming up? Oh my gosh.
Sponsored by Pepsi.
They don't pass.
Most anticipated superhero movie coming up. There's a whole. They're all kind of. I'm anticipating a bunch of them for different reasons. So Deadpool 2. I'm probably most nervous about that one because movies that have that type of sense of humor tend to struggle in the second movies. So I'm nervous about that one, but then again, the first one was really good. I'm very excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp because it's an MCU movie. I really like the first Ant-Man. I'm always rooting for Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, so I'm pumped about that one. Very interested in Aquaman because of James Wan, and I want the DCU to be successful, and that movie hasn't had a bunch of the trouble that a bunch of the other movies in the DCU have had. So for different reasons, I'm looking forward to a whole bunch of different ones. If I had to pick one, let's go Ant-Man and the Wasp. But then again, a trailer just dropped for it, so I might be a little biased. What we got? Super Chat. Thank you. Rich Reviews.
Thoughts on Tom Hanks playing Fred Rogers?
I
liked his son in the spoof one.
The what? What do you mean?
I don't know. I saw something.
You just making things up?
No, I'm sorry. I can't remember. I saw something on TV about the Mr. Rogers documentary, and Tom Hanks' son was playing Mr. Rogers, but it wasn't a real thing. It was maybe on YouTube, some sort of. I don't remember.
Maybe that's to say Tom Hanks is a great actor that has kind of that neighborly charm to him that doesn't come off like a big actor, man. That's what's kind of always made him Tom Hanks, is that he's just that guy. And so if you're talking about someone to play Mr. Rogers, I guess that makes sense. And then if you're going to do like a movie that was covering Mr. Rogers' life, the great thing about Tom Hanks is, like she said, you have Colin Hanks, who looks just like him, eerily similar to him. So you very much could do a movie spanning the life.
Colin?
Yeah, Colin Hanks. You have Colin Hanks playing Mr. Rogers' 30s, 40s, and then you have Old Man Rogers.
Oh, it was Drunk History.
There you go.
But I knew I'd seen it. Super Chat.
Thank you.
Chunky JH. We talked about this earlier. You must have just joined us. But Moonlight and Blade series on Netflix. Thoughts?
So yeah, earlier we actually did talk about this. I'm all for it. I would be absolutely for it. Excuse me. The previous question was, would I be for a Moon Knight R-rated MCU movie? My answer was no, because I want a Marvel Netflix version of it, as well as Blade. And I mentioned Blade. I am all for both of those ones being kind of the next round of Marvel Netflix stuff, if that's able to happen, because Disney's launching their own streaming service that could ruin all of our Marvel Netflix stuff. I hope it doesn't, but absolutely I want Blade to be brought into the MCU via Marvel Netflix. I don't think it needs to be a movie. I don't think that Disney wants to do R-rated Blade stuff. I don't think that it would fit to do PG-13 Blade stuff. Marvel Netflix is the perfect answer to that, as well as some of these other characters. So there you go.
Super Chat.
Oh, Super Chat. Awesome.
Jordan Taylor.
Thank you.
Who should play Carnage in Venom? And they have a suggestion, but I'll let you answer first.
I don't have, like, I have to know what they're trying to do with the character to be able to kind of say who I would want to play the person. Because if you'd said, you know, who do you want to play Venom? I almost probably never would have said Tom Hardy. And then you say Tom Hardy's going to play Venom, and I go, oh, that sounds pretty cool. So I don't have someone that immediately kind of comes to mind, especially because Carnage is when you think Carnage, it's red, symbiote-covered freakazoid. So that's special effects heavy. A lot of people can do that. So I don't have someone that necessarily comes to mind. Who is there recommended?
Bill Skarsgård.
Okay, so that'd be an interesting one. Certainly can do the creepy vibe. Yeah. If you don't know, this is It Guy.
Oh, I looked him up.
Yeah, then you know.
I didn't realize he was it, but he looked creepy just in his regular pictures.
Oh, and he's the brother of Tarzan guy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's Skarsgård.
That's why the
that
last
family.
name was familiar.
Mm-hmm. And then their dad is in the Thor movies.
Yes, I remember. Okay, let's see. Really quick, someone in the comments said, so you're not going to answer questions unless people are giving you money. We just have to respond to
this is there. Yeah, we're just trying to respond. I'll try and go faster. I didn't mean to work out that way. We've just gotten a lot of them today, or I just talk for a long time. So I'll answer real quick, and so we can take some from the main section.
Richard, super chat.
Yeah.
Snapchat.
That's something different.
Considering that you're an avid book reader, have you ever read the Expanse book series?
I have not.
Or watched the series?
I have not watched or read the Expanse series. I checked out the first episode of the Expanse because I was just mildly interested. Is it Thomas Jane, I think? It's like a sci-fi series with Thomas Jane, I believe. I watched the first episode. It didn't grab me enough for me to keep watching it, so maybe at some point in time I can put a little bit more energy into trying to watch it. What do we got next?
Oh, can we do spoilers yet or no?
We can do spoilers. So I'm about to start talking about spoilers for Infinity War. So if you haven't watched Infinity War, leave.
Plug your ears.
Infinity War, leave. If you haven't seen it, leave, because I don't know. That's because I'm trying to kick you out. I just don't want to spoil the movie for you. Thanos demands my silence, so I don't want to spoil it for you. But I'm about to start talking about Infinity War spoilers. What do we got?
Do you think that the loss of the Avengers was all Peter Quill's fault?
No. So in my spoiler review, I actually talked about that a little bit. Who's to blame? And the brilliance of the movie is that all throughout the movie, opening scene, Loki has a choice. Thor's skull is crushed, or I hand over the Tesseract. And he chose to hand it over. So it's Loki's fault. And then you go through the movie, and Gamora's standing there, Nebula's being tortured, and she can let Nebula die, or she can make a choice. And so she makes a choice to let Nebula live and go with Thanos and tell him where it's at. She made a choice, so she's responsible. Then we get later in the movie, Peter Jason Quill loses his temper over finding out about Gamora, starts punching her. He's to blame for it. Then we jump forward, and Tony's being killed. Doctor Strange makes a decision that he's going to...
Sorry.
Someone's grabbing chips to eat. He makes a choice to allow Tony to live and hands over his stone. So, in that sense, a bunch of people to blame. I think, and with that, it had to happen because this is the one option that Doctor Strange saw that leads to them eventually winning. So in that sense, it also had to transpire, and Doctor Strange allowed some of these things to happen because of where we're going later on. But if it comes down to just whose motivation for doing foolish things was the weakest, or it was maybe that's his weakness led to something that didn't need to happen. In that sense, he's the most culpable for what happened. Are we still on Super Chats?
We just got another one.
All right.
So Super Chat from David. Best worst Pixar movies.
Best, I've been kind of partial to Finding Nemo. I watched it for the first time right after my son was born when he was a yearish old. And it's all about parenting. It's a movie more for parents than for kids, even though it's very much a kid's movie. And learning to let go. And so that one kind of hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting to. So that's probably my top one. But that, you know, Toy Story movies are also great. They're also about your kids growing up and letting go. Worst, Cars 2. It's weird. Like it does not feel like a Pixar movie. It doesn't have like a Pixar heart to it. It feels like a direct-to-video sequel is what it feels like with a big budget, so the visuals are good. So that's pretty easily the one I'd put at the bottom. What do we got next?
Another super chat.
Super chat.
Jared Cressy. Why didn't Doctor Strange just use the time device? Should we say spoiler again?
Yeah, this spoiler Infinity War.
Why didn't Doctor Strange just use the time device to go back in time when Quill messed up the plan and redo it? Which was my question.
Because that's not the one path. He couldn't do that because in the one path that leads to them winning, Peter Jason Quill loses his temper, starts punching, and Thanos wins. Because after that happens, after he passes along the time stone, and Tony's like, "Why would you do this?" Then he says, "This is the end game. This is our plan right here." And then after that, he says, "This is the only way." So why did he not rewind time? Because that's one of the 14 million other options that he saw that didn't lead to victory. This is the one that leads to victory, and that's why what kind of makes it so interesting in the way it works is because it requires this big leap of faith of, I'm going to trust allowing Thanos to destroy half of humanity because I think this will lead to victory, which is an interesting, dramatic theme to kind of run into that throughout it.
Which spoiler, which Infinity War death was the most satisfying to you?
Most satisfying?
Mm-hmm. And they had one that they liked, I'll tell you.
I'd probably go with Gamora because I didn't see it coming. It tied into the plot, and it seems like it's finite. It seems like it's done. Whereas the ones in the opening scene with Loki and Heimdall seemed a bit too soon, a little bit, to have full impact for me. So I would probably go with Gamora because they gave her a really great arc. And then by having that happen, even the biblical allegories of someone sacrificing their child for... So, I mean, all sorts of kind of deep themes within that
totally different motivation.
Different motives from... but similar...
Sorry.
He thinks he's saving the universe.
I know, but...
He believes in his cause.
He's wrong. Anyway.
But so... That's the one for me. What was theirs?
Loki. They're tired of Loki. They're happy to see him dead. But someone else asked, do you think Loki's really dead because he didn't turn blue? And they thought that he would have a better plan than just a knife.
I think he better be dead. If they bring him back and they do 2 fake deaths with Loki, that it becomes like the laziest thing the MCU's ever done, the stupidest thing the MCU's ever done. So I think they even tried to build into the scene where Thanos says no resurrections this time. I think that was intentional to make the point. No, he's dead, guys.
Why didn't he turn blue, though? That's a good question.
I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine them being so foolish as to do 2 fake deaths for him.
I'm with you. I just didn't think about him not being blue.
And so, I mean, he gets stabbed, and then, they leave, and then they blow up the ship. So, even he's floating in space. What do we got? Is it super chat? All right.
No, we're just talking about Infinity War. I'm trying to catch up on all the ones
right.
you've been asking.
All right, I'm gonna try and fly through some of these.
Did Cap deserve more time in Infinity War?
Deserve more time? I know what you're saying, and I kind of felt it a little bit that all the people on the Wakanda line of the movie felt underserved in the movie. But I'm going to go with no, because I don't know what they're going to do in the next one. And I would guess that he's going to be served a lot better in the second part of it, in which case I'm okay with it. Because the movie was satisfying for me, I don't want to nitpick who got the most screen time and things like that, because inherently the nature of the story, everyone's going to be kind of underserved. It's a movie where almost everyone are like, I wish I got a little bit more of everyone except Thanos. That was a good amount of Thanos there. And maybe Gamora. Like, besides them, you kind of felt like I would have liked to have gotten a little bit more of all of this. Super chat. What do we got?
Ben Lorenowicz. Better witty banter, Star-Lord or Stark?
Better witty banter, Star-Lord or Stark? I'm going to go with Stark. Because it's 10 years of it. It's 10 years consistently, memorable, great chemistry with everyone. So I just think that he wins. And granted, probably some of it, I'm a little biased in that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I wasn't crazy about the movie. And some of that was that I didn't like what they did with Star-Lord. I didn't get some of that witty banter you're talking about from Star-Lord in that movie that I was hoping for. And so then I'm comparing Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and, you know, him cracking jokes about Thor in Infinity War to a whole lot of Tony Stark. And Robert Downey Jr. wins. It's the characterization of Tony Stark in the MCU is just something special. There aren't a lot of times where an actor has that good of chemistry with everyone and everything. And that's kind of the reason that he's become like the heart and soul of this whole thing. And for my money, or not for my money, but for or maybe for my money, is that a saying? So all these rumors of him getting paid $50 million to continue back with the MCU, and or like $50 million to be in Civil War and things like that. Be like, was he overpaid? Well, if you're paid based off of what value you bring to something, if you put Robert Downey Jr. in any MCU movie, it will make another $50 million. He will make them more than, by putting him in the movie, it will make more than $50 million. Like the fact that he was in Spider-Man Homecoming made it make a little, over $50 million more dollars. Because people love him and he elevates everything. He's like just like the thing that makes everything taste better. And so I would just have to go with Tony Stark. Super chat.
Rich reviews. In regards to Ready Player One, do you think they were unable to obtain Jack Nicholson's likeness for the Shining sequence?
In the Ready Player One, were they able to get
unable
to get Jack Nicholson's likeness?
Do you think his likeness wasn't shown because they couldn't get rights to it? Or do you think it was intentional?
I wouldn't think it was that they couldn't get his likeness, or maybe it was they didn't want to pay for it. I doubt it was that they couldn't get the rights. Because if you could do all the things they did do in that movie and did do in that Shining sequence, but the one thing you couldn't get was Jack Nicholson's likeness, that seems unlikely. But given the nature of the story, it's that our character goes in and plays as the lead character, you wouldn't need Jack Nicholson's likeness. And so there's not you can not have, it didn't occur to me that he didn't appear in it, because my thought is that our characters are playing his role in the film, and therefore you can save on having to pay him for his likeness by not having him. Is my guess is what it was, that there's just not a reason to have him.
I'm trying to find more Infinity War questions. Jaws or Jurassic Park?
I would go Jurassic Park. I didn't grow up watching Jaws. I didn't see Jaws until we were married or dating. I don't remember which one it was.
What?
This isn't new information. The first time I watched Jaws, it was with you. So she grew up watching Jaws. So I'm the movie guy, and I'm the Steven Spielberg guy, but I'd never seen Jaws until...
That's why you really married me.
That's why we got married. And then one of my favorite shows of all time is 24, and I'd never seen 24 until... I started dating her, and she's like, you should watch 24. And now she's always like, turn 24 up. Stop watching this show. But anyway. But so I grew up watching Jurassic Park. It came out when I was 11 or 12. I was 11 years old when it came out. Yeah, 11 years old when it came out. And so I was the perfect age to feel like, ooh, I'm watching something edgy that's got to get people getting eaten, but at the same time, it says dinosaurs, just perfect age for it to cement itself in my soul. So I gotta go with Jurassic Park. What do we got?
I'm looking. Do you like Cap with or without the beard better?
Without the beard. Captain is supposed to be clean shaven, just a classic look. So the idea of rugged Captain America just seems foreign to me as a guy that does this weird rugged thing all the time. Captain America is supposed to be the view of purity, that he's not to, like, he's the guy that doesn't do that. So it feels off for Captain to have a rugged beard, like my rugged beard.
Do you think Peter doesn't feel so good? That's horrid. Oh no! Don't die.
You're gonna kill me. Yes.
That was the worst.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. What do we got?
Someone asked how you reacted to the end of Infinity War. I know you already did your video, so I don't know if you want to point them towards that. But how did I react at the end of Infinity War?
So, yeah, I didn't have like a... I just thought it was great. Normally when I watch these big event movies like this, I'd have some sense of disappointment or like it didn't fully satisfy me. I felt that after the Force Awakens, even though I really liked it. It was my favorite movie that year. But I felt like, oh, that's all I got. With this one, I was just like, all right, I'll take it. That was, I like what you did there. You got me. I didn't think you were going to go there. You went there. I think you pulled this off. I totally dug it. So I didn't have like a big reaction at the end of it. She saw it with me the second time I watched it. So I was more like watching her, and I was like, get ready for it. It's about to go. It's about to go down. And she's like, stop it. I'm watching. And elbowing her.
That actually might be real.
Yeah, and so I'm like elbowing her, and then people start doing this number. She's like, and then it cuts to Peter. I don't feel so good. And
I just looked at you. I glared daggers at you.
And she just like glares at me. I hate this movie. I hate it. It just like, why did you let me see this movie? I am pregnant. You know better than let me see a movie like this. Did you want me to spoil it for you? I told you to bring Kleenex. I told you it was shocking. Like, why would you do this to me? So that was her response.
Super chat. Rich Reviews says, happy to hear Patreon live stream is coming back.
Yes, so, yes, tomorrow, I found out I'm going to be at a pool right beforehand, so I'll have pool hair. But yes, Patreon Live will be coming back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central Time.
What kind of hair will you have?
Pool hair. But actually, it won't be too much better or worse than today's hair. There we go. Wow, that oddly works. Live stuff.
Wow, I can't believe you just did that. This is super random. I don't know if you can come up with an answer for this, but do you have a favorite movie for 2014?
Favorite movie for 2014? Guardians of the Galaxy.
Nice.
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, that one we it took my interns to go see it right before we left on a trip to the Navajo Nation to do service work there. And I used to try and take my interns every summer to go see one of the big movies that came out the year, but a couple years before that, I took my interns to go see Dark Knight Rises at the IMAX first showing. And so then we were just quoting Guardians of the Galaxy to each other all throughout this trip in the Navajo Nation, digging out houses and pouring concrete and things like that. And as Bo, you're on camera.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah, he's on camera. But yeah, so apparently frowned upon when you tell your intern, call them a green whore. I thought it was funny because I was just quoting, this green whore is my friend, and then apparently my intern frowned upon, didn't like that very much.
Pretty sure I told you it wasn't okay.
Wait, you told me I couldn't say that? It was a hilarious joke.
So that answer, I believe, answers another question, which is, why do you hate Star-Lord?
I don't hate Star-Lord. I don't like what they've done with him recently. Yeah, him is in the first one is great. Him in Volume 2, not so crazy about what they did with him. And then likewise, Infinity War. I like the movie, but the movie doesn't make you like him too much.
No, it doesn't.
Makes him seem really insecure and very immature.
With the exception of one very pivotal scene. The bubble gun.
Bubble gun.
Super chat from Rich Reviews.
What do we got?
Do you think we will see the return of more classic James Bond's villains?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that seems to be... Spectre wasn't particularly well received, but it didn't bomb either. And, you know, they're always going to go back and cycle things and try things out. So absolutely. In Bond movies in particular, they're very cyclical. They get goofy, and then they get real serious, and then they go back to goofy, and so they're always going through that cycle. And that you kind of go back and you go, the Timothy Dalton ones were a lot more serious than the Roger Moore films, and then Pierce Brosnan ones. GoldenEye started a little bit more serious, and then by the time you get to Die Another Day, he's surfing while lasers from the sky are shooting at him, and they got goofy as can be. They're just always being cyclical. So I'm sure that they'll cycle back on classic Bond villains and bring guys in from the past.
Would you consider making a top 10 superhero film scores ranking?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I'd be very open to doing. Yeah, I probably not even too far from now when I just kind of find an open week in there. Sometimes, I'm debating if I want to rank all of the scores from the MCU, but I would really just be ranking the main themes from them. And it's some of those, it gets a little bit tricky, but like top 10 superhero themes, there's 10. It's easy to come up with 10 great superhero themes that are just iconic, and so I could do something like that.
What camera do you use?
I'm using a Logitech 920C. It's just a webcam. That's why I could do all that fun stuff. It's a $60 camera you can pick up at any Best Buy. Yeah, that's what I use. Logitech 920C.
Oh, sorry. E.T. or I assume Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Raiders. E.T.'s great. Raiders is the best adventure movie of all time. You don't think Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best adventure movie of all time? Which one?
I like is it The Last Crusade?
Yeah, but, I mean...
I just don't like the skin melting stuff.
Yeah, but skin melting's awesome.
Okay.
But, I mean, you know, that... I kind of... I mean, you're not going to put E.T. over...
No,
You're not, so I don't even know why you're disagreeing with me.
I was just surprised. I don't know.
You thought I was going to go with E.T.?
You like to harass me about E.T. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, but it's because you hate E.T. because of the part where it's like... "Ah!" She's in the corner crying now.
Lots of requests again for Narnia ranking.
So can we just watch these over the next few weeks?
Yeah, we can watch them.
So...
Coming soon.
So coming soon, wife just approved. We can watch them with our kids over the next few weeks.
Super chat.
Super chat, what do we got? Thank you.
Austin Red Wing.
Austin Red Wing, thank you.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Are you happy IW?
Infinity
Oh,
War.
thank you. Arguably set up a story centered mostly on the original Avengers, or would you rather have the newer ones be more prominent?
So am I happy that where Infinity War ends sets up the next movie being prominent for our original Avengers? Spoilers on all this stuff, but on the assumption that this is kind of the swan song for Tony Stark, Captain America, maybe Thor, that some of these guys, they're going away. Under that assumption... no, I'm very happy that this, my hope is that basically this is kind of their big final last hurrah that kind of puts them to the sidelines. They're not leading this thing anymore. Whatever they do brings back our new characters and brings back Doctor Strange and Black Panther and Spider-Man, and so then they're the stars now, and then Tony's dead and Captain America's dead. And Thor's off in space or something, leading the Guardians of the Galaxy or something. That's kind of what I want them to do. And so for that reason, I'm perfectly fine with the fact that they appear to be setting up it bookends it, is what it does. There we go. Oh, I can't do it. But it just bookends it, and I think I like the symmetry of that.
Where are Valkyrie and Korg?
In my spoiler review, I implied that they were all dead by saying that they were all dead. And then people corrected me, hundreds of them, being like, no. Thor says only half the Asgardians were killed, and then a bunch of other people were like, and the Russos said in an interview that they went off on another ship. They're alive. Essentially, between interviews from them and then stuff that Thor says, the implication is that they're on some ship taking Asgardians somewhere, something like that. Only half the Asgardians were killed.
Do you think the sequels for Spider-Man, Guardians, or Black Panther could be set before Infinity War?
I think there's a very good chance that Guardians takes place before. That seems... I mean, I don't know. Until we see Infinity War Part 2, I don't know for sure. But that's kind of where people are talking about... James Gunn said it's going to be Gamora-centric. How do you do that when she's dead? Well, that would be one way that you would do that. And especially because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 took place 4 years ago. Because Volume 2 took place only 6 months after the first movie. And that's why, there's a big gap there. There's 3 years in there to where they could put Volume 3. Black Panther and Spider-Man, pretty sure those are going to be after. And they're just going to be brought back. That very much so what I would imagine they're going to do with this. I don't think those ones will be set beforehand.
What's your favorite bad movie along the lines of The Room?
The Room?
Right.
The Room, Story of Ricky, which is early 90s martial arts movie about a guy named... What's the Story of Ricky is what it is. And he's put in this super prison, and it's just ultra violent. It's insane. It may just insanely violent in the worst way possible. The warden has like an eye he pulls out that he keeps mints in, and it's just a super weird movie that you have to see it to just experience the story of Ricky. So that's one. Trolls 2, classic, terrible movie. Those are the ones that immediately come to mind for that one. And American Ninja 2.
People are trying to claim you as their own. You are mine.
Depends on who is it.
This one is Taylor Owen.
Taylor Owen? I don't think that person owns me. But I don't know, Taylor. Maybe I'm missing something.
You're my husband.
My wife is saying that I'm her husband, so... And I'm getting evil eyes. What do we have a next question?
Super chat.
Super chat. What do we got?
Rich reviews. How many Avatar sequels will Zoe Saldana be in?
I have no idea.
Why are you dying?
I've been dying for like a week now. I really don't know because I don't know what James Cameron's doing. I kind of think James Cameron's kind of gone crazy based off the quotes that he's been putting out there and stuff he's been saying. But I mean, I would assume that she was. Yeah, without knowing anything about where they're going, I would have just assumed she's in all of them, or at some point in time she dies to inspire someone to save the day or universe or wherever they're going. But I can't imagine what 4 more stories in the Avatar universe would be. That what's like James Cameron sitting there like, I know what this is, and she comes up with 4 more. I have no clue what that is. I have no guesses. I'm not a fan of what James Cameron's been doing the last 20 years. I'll put it that way. Do we have a next question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, I'm sorry.
So I'm a huge fan of James Cameron, but he's made one movie in the last 20 years. Titanic came out in 1997. And in this time, he's only put out Avatar. And I'm not crazy about the movie Avatar, so... James, what have you been doing the last 20 years? What do we got?
If the X-Men were introduced in the MCU, would you like to see Hugh Jackman reprise his role as the Wolverine?
So would I like to see Hugh Jackman reprise his role as the Wolverine in the MCU X-Men? No, not at all. I want a hard reboot. And just even beyond that, Hugh Jackman is about to turn 50. So even the idea of him playing Wolverine at 50 doesn't work really well. Even as much as, he's aged really nicely, but he hasn't aged that well. And you'd be kind of setting yourself up for failure by having, for this guy that doesn't age, let's get a 50-year-old man. Not a good plan. So, yeah, and just on a practical level, I want a hard reboot except for Deadpool because Deadpool's can break the fourth wall. And so you can actually continue him and make all sorts of jokes about the continuity changing. But besides that, I want a full, hard reboot of the entire thing. Why are you holding your eye?
Well, I was going to ask you a question based off your answer, but now I can't remember the question. I'm sorry. What superhero are you wanting to have their own movie?
What superhero do I want to have their own movie? I was when they had all those rumors about the Nightwing movie, or in other words, a Dick Grayson movie. I kind of dug that. I think Dick Grayson's a cool character. That there's a bunch of things you can do with Dick Grayson that are really interesting, and gives a new level to Batman when you can have grown-up Dick Grayson. And they haven't really done that in the movies. You had Chris O'Donnell back in the 90s, but they didn't play the storyline really out. So that's one that I found pretty interesting that I would have liked to have done properly. That I don't know what they're doing with the DCU, so I doubt it's going to happen.
Did Blade Runner 2049 live up to your expectations?
Yes, but I liked it. I gave it a real positive review. Gorgeous movie. I've just never been crazy about the original Blade Runner. A little bit too weird for me, and cerebral in a way that it was like, I don't think I know what this movie. This seems more like it's trying to set things. It's not one that resonated with me, and for me, 2049 succeeded where the original didn't. I understood what it was like. This is a better version of the originals. What it felt like to me, and had some better things to say, better executed, a better story. So that was kind of my take on it. As someone that was not the biggest fan of the original, this is a better version.
How do you think Thanos is going to be defeated in Avengers 4?
Something involving time travel that takes them back to the Battle of New York, and involves Ant-Man joining in and Captain Marvel joining in.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, but that's all based off set photos. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. You sound terrible.
I know. And there's this wall of paint that's probably not helping at all.
Oh,
But
at least you're not pregnant.
I don't have too many distinct theories on how it's going to play out, really at all. I don't have any strong guesses, just kind of on the top of my head, because that movie ended with kind of like, let's kind of nuke the whole thing and leave you with no idea where we're going. In which case, I have no idea where they're going.
What's the best non-superhero action movie in recent memory?
Best
non-superhero
action movie.
So non-superhero action.
Obvious pick would be the John Wick movies. For just B movie level, there's one that came out last year called Security with Antonio Banderas. What other? Sorry about that. Action movies that I've watched that I've dug recently.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Ready Player One's the only thing that's popping in my head right now.
And I wouldn't consider that an action movie.
Well, ask me. That was
yeah, that's what kind of comes to mind. It seems like there's been a lot of action. Doesn't seem like there's not a. It's a genre that's mostly being sent out to comic book movies and other big genre films. And so you're getting some great action, though, on TV, where the quality of action on, like, Daredevil and Arrow is just so much greater than anything we'd seen before on television. So it seems like there's a shortage of just straight-up action movies like we got before. And so that's why I tend to kind of cheer on any sort of ones that we get. Antoine Fuqua seems to be the guy that's the best at just kind of doing straight-up action movies recently. So if you're going to throw a little bit of Western mix into it, the Magnificent Seven from 2016, dug that movie. Very excited for his Equalizer coming out in a couple months. So there's some thoughts.
Is Nebula going to kill Thanos?
That was my theory going into Infinity Wars, that she was. That did not happen. It's very possible. It gives good dramatic closure on that one. At the same time, if you're doing an event movie like this, you kind of want one of your big heroes to be the person that makes the final move, as opposed to, hey, you know this side character in those two movies? So it's tough to say, because there's a lot of reasons that you'd go with any number of people for them to be the one that would get to make the final kill.
Since Robert Downey Jr., Benedict Cumberbatch, Jude Law, and Martin Freeman are in MCU, can you do a Sherlock ranking upon Iron Man's death and Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man's revival?
A ranking of Sherlock Holmes?
I think that's what, I'm not really sure, but yes, I read it exactly as it was written.
I could do something like that, and I'd be interested in doing something like that. It's very tricky because Sherlock Holmes is one of the characters that has been brought to screen by the most actors ever. They've been bringing Sherlock Holmes to the screen for 100 years now. Literally 100 years. I mean, he's one of those people that they're bringing to the screen when they first started doing movies. And so I'd have to figure out what that ranking means, what I would want to do with that, how I would do that. And it's tricky. I mean, just even look at people that have done Sherlock Holmes in the last 10 years, and you've got a pretty long list. Sorry about that.
Do you have a drink still?
I've got a 7-Up and a Dr. Pepper left. So, I do something like that. I'm not quite sure how I would want to do that, but I'm Super chat. Awesome. So I'm probably going to go for about 10 more minutes since my health is giving out, and we've been doing this for a little bit now. So get your questions in. Thank you guys so much. What do we got?
Austin Red Wing, favorite actor and actress.
Favorite actor and actress. I'm not great at picking favorites for things like this, because I like different people for different reasons. So for favorite actor, we tend to go with Stallone. For the Rocky movies, maybe Schwarzenegger. Those kind of guys would be the people that are kind of favorites of mine. Favorite actress. Have you ever come up with a favorite actress?
For you?
Yeah.
We have a list somewhere, but no, I don't think so.
Yeah, but that's a different list.
I don't know. I don't think I know.
I don't necessarily. I don't have ones that come to mind as favorite actresses. There's a whole bunch of people that I really like, but it's not favorites. I don't think.
This is a big, broad time frame. Well, worst and best year for that's what worst year and best year for movies in the last 5 years.
Worst year and best year. What year are we in?
We're in
2018. Worst year and best year. That's tough because I have to start thinking through a whole bunch of different things to kind of figure that one out. So in 2016 you had Civil War, and you had Doctor Strange. Last year had Thor Ragnarok, and I don't think I could come up with a good answer off the top of my head. And that would be tricky to try and answer that one without having lists in front of me, because I'd have to sit here and kind of think through the movies and start comparing them and analyzing them, and that would be very boring. So I'm sorry, I can't answer the question.
Is Tony going to have to sacrifice something he loves to use the gauntlet?
Sacrifice seems to be a major theme in what they're trying to do in these movies. Since Loki had to sacrifice, Gamora had to choose what she would sacrifice. Star-Lord had to choose to sacrifice Gilmore, even though he didn't have to do that. Thanos had to make a choice. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went in that direction of Tony Stark having to make a sacrifice to be able to do something to fix things. So,
did the second Teen Titans trailer change your mind about the film, or your expectations or excitement level?
I haven't watched it yet. Actually, I have two children that love Teen Titans Go. We've accidentally allowed them to watch it, and
who accidentally allowed them to watch it?
Someone accidentally allowed them to watch it, and then last December we were in Houston for a wedding in a hotel, and so they saw The Night Begins to Shine in the hotel room, and so then all they wanted to listen to when it could listen to music was The Night Begins to Shine forever. So we're very superficially knowledgeable about Teen Titans Go in our household, if that makes sense. So I haven't watched it. I was kind of holding off showing it to my kids, but so I can't say that it's. I know what Teen Titan Go is. It's either your thing or it isn't, and I'll probably be there opening weekend with my son, so that'll probably happen. But it's not like a trailer for it's gonna win me over or change my mind on it, just because I kind of know what I'm getting in for.
Which scene? Airport scene in Civil War or Titan scene in Infinity War?
Airport scene. It's just a little bit more. It's intentionally supposed to be a little bit more iconic, whereas one's a boss fight and one is meant to be, look at all your heroes battling each other, and the one of those is meant to be more potent than the other. But two great sequences though. They're both great versions of what they were trying to do.
Will Deadpool 2 or Ant-Man and the Wasp make more money?
Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2 will probably make a good bit more. Ant-Man is one of the weaker performing franchises in the MCU. I mean, it's like bottom 5. Well, I think bottom 3 franchise or films in the MCU when it comes to making money. And Deadpool is the most successful of the X-Men movies. And so you're talking about the lowest versus the highest. And I would very much anticipate that Deadpool would do quite a bit better.
Thoughts on Rambo 5 announcement?
Oh, yeah. So you didn't hear about this?
No.
So earlier today, they announced that they're doing Rambo 5. Rambo's coming back. Stallone's going to star. He's going to take on the Mexican cartels and might direct it. What are my thoughts on it? Hey, I'm game for it. If you're going to do another Rambo movie, I'll be there opening night. I'll be excited about it. This is one of my franchises for life. But over the last 10 years, Rambo 5 announcements have been like DCEU announcements over the last 2 years. They just announce new things, and then they change it, and it shifts, and then they say they're doing something, and it's not happening, and then they swap out directors. They've been announcing Rambo 5 for 10 years. Then they announced they were doing a Rambo reboot. Then they announced that they were doing a Rambo TV series. And now they're announcing they're doing Rambo 5 again. And this idea about Rambo taking on the cartels, they've been talking about doing that since about the year 2000. Like before he went to Burma to save missionaries in the one that came out 10 years ago, they were talking about him taking on the cartels. They've been talking about this for a very long time. So it's one of those ones that I hear it and I go, okay, I'm so on board if this actually happens. I just don't think until I see a set photo, I don't think this movie's happening.
Sorry. Who's your favorite character in Infinity War?
In Infinity War? I was really digging Doctor Strange and Tony. I'll do a twofer on that one because the egos bouncing off of each other. I really enjoyed that. If I got to go with one, Thanos, pretty cool character. What they were able to do with him, make a guy that's a total sociopath that wants to kill a bunch of people, and at the same time we're like, I feel for you, man. That's pretty impressive when you can do that. So those are my quick answers.
What's your favorite Black Widow hairstyle?
So in the comments section, for the last couple of months, there's been a movement for me to do a Black Widow hairstyle ranking video.
No way.
No, yeah, I get comments on it at least every week. So they really, every time I put out a new ranking video that's not this Black Widow hairstyle ranking video, they inform me they want me to do the Black Widow hairstyle ranking video. What?
It could be really fast.
It could be really fast. I just when I do it, just the comments on it, the people that don't get the joke, like, what? What is why is he talking about this? And what feels like you ran out of ideas with this one. It's like, maybe. So, worst hairstyle, pretty easy. Infinity War. Without question. Just that is a terrible idea. Best, I don't know. I'd have to look at pictures. So I'll give you worst. Is the only one that I can say that one's the worst.
Do you like Harry Potter?
No. I don't hate Harry Potter or anything like that. It's just not my franchise. It's not. I've watched the movies all multiple times. Saw several of them in the theater. Listened to the books with her. Listening to the audiobooks many times. But
Yeah, the wife is a fan.
the wife is a big fan. It's just not a franchise that for me I've ever just really resonated with. I've actually been to Harry Potter World too in Orlando, Florida. She hasn't. But that was really cool. They got some cool rides.
Bring me a wand.
Yeah, she got a wand out of it and a chocolate frog.
And a hoodie.
But it's not one of my go-to franchises.
Rank the Tomb Raider movies.
I did a video ranking the Tomb Raider movies. I think it was Cradle of Life, first Tomb Raider, and then the new Lara Croft one. The new one was the top one. I think that's what it. But I have a video ranking them, so I don't want to talk about it too much.
I'm assuming you don't know which Harry Potter house you belong to officially.
You ask this every time we do
They
one.
ask it.
Every single time we do one of these.
They're asking.
Well, wait, I need to take the test or whatever.
Right?
Do you have the hat?
No, I don't. I shouldn't think that's as funny. Yes, I do. Oh my goodness, what are they ranking here?
I don't know what they're ranking.
Whiplash, Birdman, Grand Budapest Hotel, and Edge of Tomorrow. Are those all from the same year?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, I'll try and find it. What's your favorite color?
Blue, because of my eyes.
Venom or Ant-Man 2?
Ant-Man 2. Venom, I don't know what they're going for. I don't know. I trust Tom Hardy, but I trust the MCU a lot more.
Deadpool Season 3 thoughts?
Deadpool Season 3 thoughts?
What it says. Exactly like that.
I don't know what that... I don't know if that's asking.
Maybe Daredevil Season 3.
Daredevil Season 3. I don't have thoughts because they haven't put a trailer out. I loved Season 1 and 2 of Daredevil, so I'm all for another season, but there's not a trailer, so I don't have necessarily thoughts on it, and I don't know any rumors or anything about what they're aiming to do.
Do you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I do not watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've watched the first 12 episodes of the first season, and that's it. Never clicked for me, so that's why I don't have rankings on seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or anything like that, because I just haven't watched it. And I'm so far behind that I can't really catch up.
Who's my favorite superhero? Do I have a favorite?
Your favorite superhero?
You.
Captain... that's true. Captain Boomerang, I thought was what you said.
What? Isn't that guy
Yeah.
from Die Hard?
Yeah. Jai Courtney.
Yeah, totally.
Meteor Man from the early
I don't know who
90s.
that
The
is.
Shadow.
No.
The
Definitely
Phantom.
Nope. Negative.
Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage.
Negative Ghost Rider.
What's your answer?
I don't know. They just asked me who my favorite Avenger is. I don't know those answers. They're all so pretty. It's hard to choose. Oh my gosh. Sorry. What would be your ideal Avengers 4 title?
I don't have one. I have to know what they're doing, so I don't have like, this is the title I hope they go with. I just don't have anything. I in a certain sense, titles don't tend to like make them go, wow. So I really don't have any thoughts on it.
Sorry, there are a bunch of. They're asking about Fortnite. You still haven't gotten an invite, have you? Like you got a lot of time to play anyway.
Yeah, I'm a pretty busy. As mentioned, dying. As mentioned before, I have a full-time job delivering paint during the day, and then making all the videos that I make now takes a lot of time because when I first started out, and you can watch my older videos, and there's a lot of editing errors, and I didn't do as much fancy stuff, and I do my movie reviews in one take and stuff like that. When you think that 100 people are going to watch it, when you think 50 people are going to watch something, you create it with one kind of set of standards. But now, I put out the post-credit scenes video this morning, and it's 13,000 people have watched it. I put out my ranking of the MCU a week ago, and 250,000 people have watched it, which is like, that's really weird. It's a thing that I'm still adjusting to, that I can't really process the idea that I have a video that over 700,000 people have watched. Like, that's a weird thought that, like, that's a lot of people looking at me and paying attention to my thoughts on things. And so I spend a lot of time editing my stuff and overthinking a lot of what I'm doing because I'm still getting used to all of you wonderful people actually caring about what I have to say about things. So I don't have time to play a lot of games. So I haven't played Fortnite yet. And my son's really gotten into Battlefront 2. And so when I do play video games, I'm playing Battlefront 2 with my son, who's, if he's going to get into Star Wars, I need to encourage him to do that. So it would be irresponsible for me to not play Battlefront 2 with my son, is kind of my take on it. So like when my wife falls asleep early, I'll wake my son up and we'll kind of go downstairs and we'll just play. What is that's not a good joke? So anyway, I just don't have a lot of free time.
John Boyega is Blade.
I don't like it. I don't. John Boyega has. I don't like the word I'm about to use, but he has there's a goofiness to his energy, and I haven't seen Attack the Block yet. Now maybe that could kind of pull me in a different direction, but just the particular vibe that he brings, it's just so different, and it's not an acting thing, but it's when the person that came beforehand was Wesley Snipes, who just has such a cool vibe, a cool screen presence, and such a like intimidating screen presence as a actual martial artist who's an actual athlete. John Boyega does not seem like, yeah, let's go from Wesley Snipes to him. I just don't see that at all.
Plus, you wouldn't get as much of the fun commentary on the side about the making of.
Yeah, who wouldn't get all the crazy stories that you got with Wesley Snipes doing his method acting and not demanding that the director call him Blade on set. So, you agree with that?
Yes.
Well, that's a short answer, but okay.
Well, Dick Clark just sent us a super chat, but no questions, so get that to
Thank
us
you.
if you have one.
Yeah, if you got a question for us, go ahead and send it to us, but thank you so much for the super chat.
Your 6-year-old son plays Battlefront 2?
Yes, he does. Yeah, I took it up a couple weeks ago. Is that? I don't know if that's bad parenting. It's not like bloody or anything like that. You are shooting people, but yeah, I mean
I've been a little concerned with the frequency with which he shouts, "Mom, I killed everyone!"
I killed everyone. But he loves to play the Roger Roger level. Actually, it's called Roger Roger, but it's those droids that say Roger Roger, and he loves that stuff in the little robot guys. So he's not a sociopath yet, but yeah, he's getting competent. He was horrible for a while there. My daughter, who's 4, tried to play and embarrassed herself. Just embarrassing. Because she's 4.
Being nice. Good
I'm being nice.
Do you prefer...
5 minutes. We're going to close out in 5 minutes.
Do you prefer an excited theater or a quiet theater during a movie?
It really depends on the movie. If you go see A Quiet Place and they're excited, that's weird. But the theater, the first night I saw Infinity War, my audience was so amped up. They were like cheering at all the trailers and everything. Like, Solo, yeah! Deadpool 2, yeah! They were cheering for weird trailers. Like every single movie, they're like standing up and clapping and hooting and hollering. And they did that the whole movie. It was like every time a character was introduced, like, yeah, Peter Parker! That was a ton of fun. That would have been horrible if that was my audience for A Quiet Place. But like an appropriately energetic audience, I'm totally fine with that. There's also just a bad audience. And a bad audience is a bad audience. An audience responding with a big emotion for things you're supposed to be excited about, I'm totally cool with that. An audience that's just rowdy and talking to each other, not cool.
I got to see the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets with the symphony, and they encouraged audience participation, and it was the worst. I was like, I want to listen to the music and watch the movie, and the conductor was like, yeah, boo when the bad guys are on, and it was horrible. So in that context, not so great. Are you a sports guy?
Not really. I've been doing fantasy football the last 3 seasons just to try and be more social with people, and I try to do I'm introverted. I'm not a big people person, so I do things to try and actively participate with other people. And so I kind of followed football, but literally only in regards to my fantasy football team. Sometimes I'll try and follow UFC a little bit, but I feel like I'm too far behind to catch up with all the people. So I'm always behind on that too. So not really. We used to go to a lot of hockey games. Can you grab my phone?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Where is it? You have it.
Sorry, everybody. I texted some people telling them that my room is changing, and then 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, and they've just now responded to me. So
someone's requesting you make merch, specifically baseball caps. But you do have merch.
I have shirts. In the description of all my videos, you can get Sean Chandler Talks About t-shirts, and I got 3 or 4 different designs that are Sean Chandler Talks About. One of them has my face and the hammer. Several of them just kind of say Sean Chandler Talks About. So I have shirts. I have to look into where to do t-shirt or where to do hats. I'm not able to do that one.
There's a whole bunch of obnoxious requests for a wife reveal. A lot of them. So no.
No. Yeah, sorry that
I'm just
not
sorry.
going to happen.
I'm happy to participate, but I like being behind the scenes. John Krasinski as, is it Reed?
Reed Richards, Fantastic Four. Yeah, we talked about that before. That someone asked me who I would cast, and John Krasinski is the person that I threw out there.
What's your go? Oh, I'm sorry.
And so some people also said, so some of the rumor mill type stuff right after A Quiet Place came out, people were like, John Krasinski for Reed Richards. And then people were like, John Krasinski to direct Fantastic Four. And the bridge between directing A Quiet Place and directing a Fantastic Four movie, that's a pretty big gap right there. I mean, he did a great job with the one movie, but I don't know if he's a good fit for the other. But anyway, so that's a rabbit trail.
Super random. If Dick Clark or August Early sent us a super chat, but neither of them sent questions. So Dick Clark or August Early, if you have a question you want us to answer, send those to us, please.
Final couple of minutes here.
Which character from The Office should join the MCU? Kevin.
Well, Kevin should join the Deadpool universe. He can team up with Peter, I think was the new guy's name. So Kevin with Deadpool. Yeah, that's what I would want to go with.
Oh, for real? Oh, I'm excited. I picked the right one. That's funny. Do you have a favorite supervillain?
Favorite supervillain? I don't think so. I mean, Lex Luthor is kind of the guy that the modern version of Lex Luthor, not like the mad scientist old version of him that wore green, but the modern version of the rich mogul who has a lust for power. That's a pretty cool character in my mind. So, yeah, something like that.
August Early sent in his question to go to
Yes.
Super Chat. Favorite MCU moment?
Favorite MCU moment? Probably some of the Captain America First Avenger, that first hour with Steve Rogers becoming Captain America and like deciding I'm just going to go rescue those POWs and coming back. That was pretty great. I Am Iron Man at the end of the first Iron Man movie. Incredible moment. Just so different from what you're used to seeing in comic book movies where the hero at the end of the movie is like, I am Iron Man. And he just goes for it. That's a great moment. The post-credit scene in that movie with Nick Fury showing up, my theater went nuts on that one. The fact that they're able to pull off We Are Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy, that's a pretty cool moment. Did you have a pick?
No, I don't think
What's
so.
your favorite MCU moments?
I really did like in Infinity War, Drax? Not Dax.
Dax
You're
is
Dax.
I'm Dax Shepard. Drax the Destroyer is the character.
Admiring Thor was my favorite. This is not a dude. This is a man. And he's not wrong.
It's true.
Dick Clark sent in his question.
Dick Clark, all right.
I adore Iron Man, but not as much as you. Can you convince me why it's so good?
The movie?
Did not elaborate.
So what? Say that again?
I adore Iron Man, but not as much as you. Can you convince me why it's so good?
It sounds like the movie. I think a lot of what makes the original Iron Man so special to a lot of us is somewhat the experience of seeing it for the first time, which it's like the movie where they figured out how to do fun comic book movies. Because you had serious comic book movies before that, and you had campy comic book movies before that, and you'd had kind of the X-Men tone before that. And with Spider-Man, it was fun, but has a certain teenage angst in it, and a teenagery vibe to it. But the idea to be able to have a grown man adult comic book movie that's good for adults and younger people, there's just something special about cracking that code for how to do that they've done with all of the MCU. That was very special. And then likewise, the redemption of Robert Downey Jr. Because before that movie, I mean, he had no reputation. I mean, he was the laughing stock of Hollywood. And he got fired from Ally McBeal because he couldn't pull his act together. And people my age, that's what he was remembered for. He was this guy that kind of was in some stuff and was respectable, and then he was the washed out, the way people talk about Lindsay Lohan for the last 10 years, just this washed out person that used to be talented and just can't pull it together. And then he does this movie, and you remembered how good he was. They cracked the code for fun comic book movies. And then in the scheme of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it lacks the weight and pretenses of the movie that came afterwards. Where you watch Infinity War and there's so much backstory you need to know. There's so much expectation going into it. Just all the weight of trying to have these movies that tie together and all the expectations. It's free of all of that. It's just this great movie that's fun, that sets this incredible tone, that works.
What do you think
was that a good answer?
Yes.
Did you have an answer?
No, because I was reading.
Okay, so
Sorry.
finalist questions.
How many?
I don't know, how many good ones do you have?
Sean, what do you think is better, the warehouse scene from Batman versus Superman or the elevator scene from Winter Soldier?
I mean, I would go with the warehouse scene is the one that I've certainly watched more. I think it's a longer sequence, and because we've had so much Batman in movies before, that there's just a lot of him unable to move his head, and so he's doing stuff like this because he can't move his head fully. Having this sequence where he's just moving and slamming heads down, and just you're seeing this very visceral action with wide Zack Snyder takes. That's kind of something special and different. Both great sequences, but that's certainly the one that I've rewatched a lot more.
There's a debate going on in the comments section. What state do you live in?
It's a debate?
Mm-hmm.
It's not even a mystery. It's not even a...
Mm-hmm.
There's people that are giving the right answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was born in California. I was born in San Jose, California.
Confuse them.
I was born in San Jose, California. Both of my parents are from Denver, Colorado, so I spent a lot of time in Denver, Colorado. I went to college in Columbia, South Carolina, and I've been in the Austin area of Texas since 1988.
And you're still there.
Besides,
so you live in Texas.
I live in Texas, in the Austin area. Besides going away to college for 3 years, I've been in Austin for, in November of this year, for 30 years.
Wow.
30 years in Austin area.
Old
Or
dude.
27 years, as it actually is.
What's your go-to comedy movie?
My go-to comedy movie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not mine.
The Office.
We've
I don't
been
know.
so pathetic lately. Like,
Well, it's somewhat intentional because people keep asking me, because I in one of my videos I referenced on the Amino app being in the Office group and ranking the seasons, and so since then people figured out, oh, this guy likes The Office, so they keep telling me to rank the seasons. It's not unintentional that we're watching all the seasons that we normally don't watch.
I just felt like we were really uncreative lately.
No, it's work related. Really, is what that is. It's all a work thing. So we've literally been watching through all these seasons of The Office that we don't normally watch because we didn't care for most of the later seasons. Just right before we did this, we were watching an episode, and she goes, "Have we rewatched this ever?" Like and I was like, "No, we haven't." And so
No, it's not the one.
yeah,
time.
just or two
We
times,
still skip
right?
Scott's tots.
Yeah, it's true.
Not a joke.
I don't really have a go-to comedy movie, but The Office would be the comedy TV show, or Parks and Rec are the.
You like 13 going on 30?
So there's several things like that. 13 going on 30, 10 Things I Hate About You, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. But they're more like rom-coms. Or when you put on While You Were Sleeping.
That's okay.
So those would be my answers.
What's your favorite Arrowverse show?
I'd go with Arrow. You have to see. I'm behind on all of them by a few months because they dropped them all from Hulu, so I haven't been able to catch up. But I'd probably go with Arrow. It's the seasons of doing this number, but it's been on a little bit longer, so I don't know what the Flash it will end up, what its long-term legacy will be. But I think I'll go with Arrow.
Video ranking of Sean Chandler talks about. Like, rank your own videos.
All 600 videos ranked. I know what my worst one is, I think. I did a trailer reaction to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 right after we did a live broadcast. And so I did a live trailer reaction. And the way I had two phones, and I had one I was holding up like this, and one that I was watching and reacting to it. And for whatever reason, this video caught onto the YouTube algorithm, and for like 9 months, it was the most viewed video on my channel. For like 9 months, it was the only video I had that was like over 15,000 views for a long, long time, for like a year. It is the worst video on my channel. Like, the audio was crackling. I mean, it's a trailer reaction where I was doing this. That's the worst video on my channel. It was really embarrassing for a while there that was the one that got 16,000 views. And so I was very happy when some of my more recent stuff has gotten traction where I did a better job with it.
Favorite movie from the 80s? I know, there's no way. I assume
It's the same list as my favorite movies, because my list of favorite movies, when someone asks, hey, what's your favorite movie? And then I listed off 10 movies from the 80s. So I can't, for the same reason I can't list my favorite movie from the 80s, it's the same list of movies. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, Die Hard, Predator, Aliens. It's the same kind of list of movies. Do you have a final question you want to go with?
Have you done a review for The Room?
Yeah, I have a video where I reviewed The Room. That is a Patreon requested one from the Shoop. That's the first time I ever watched it. That's why I watched it the first time.
For real?
Yeah, when you came, you're like, what is this weird movie you're watching?
Just because that was. That's fantastic.
Shoop.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Parks and Rec or The Office?
Well, The Office. Parks and Rec maintained its quality better throughout. The Office went off the rails for me after season 4. And even in season 4 and 3, there were some things about it that I thought went off the rails. But Parks and Rec maintained their quality throughout. In some ways got better as it went along. But just there's things about The Office that were just... In some of it, is kind of one of those shows... I don't know if this is every married couple or whatever, but you have these shows that just kind of have a special place inside of your marriage. And so we were, right before we moved back to Texas after I graduated from college, 10 years ago, actually it's 10 years ago when we discovered The Office, we went to go see Get Smart, because I grew up watching Get Smart, and I'd never really watched The Office before that. And we're like, this Steve Carell guy is great. We like this guy. He's got a show called The Office. Let's check that out. And so started to watch it, and we literally only we just kept rewatching seasons 1 through 4 of The Office for 2 years straight or something like that.
Well, until we caught up to live.
And until we caught up to live, and then
that was like back in the day when we actually watched it live on TV.
Yeah.
And then we'd talk about it at the water cooler at work the next day.
Mm-hmm.
None of this Hulu stuff.
Yes. The Office is one of those shows that just kind of had a special place for us.
Okay, you have any thoughts on Rocket's role in Avengers 4?
No, because with all those sorts of questions, I just don't know whether...
Infinity War?
Infinity War Part 2.
Okay, sorry.
The one that comes out a year from now.
Okay.
Rocket didn't... So he's still around. I just don't know. I have no idea where they're going with it. So I don't have any of those sorts of thoughts. Do you have a good final question for me? You got to tell me what's the final one.
I'm going to just pick one, and then we're going to have to end it, because we'll just keep talking for forever.
I know. That's why I'm telling you to pick a last one.
Should Kevin Feige play a Marvel character?
I would imagine no. If he hasn't done it yet, doesn't seem like he wants to, and he's probably not good at it, so probably wouldn't be a great idea.
Okay.
What
do you want me to?
I want like a nice epic last one.
An epic one.
It has to be all it has to be is the best question that we've gotten thus far.
Well, that's a lot of pressure.
It's only just one question that's better than everything you've seen up to this point in time.
I'm just gonna say hi to Marlon.
Hi, Marlon.
It's Gamer Cop changed their name, and I can't type to say hello because I can't type.
If you haven't heard this, we can't type anything for some reason today, so.
It won't let us submit it.
Thank you guys so much for watching. This has gone on for like 2 hours now. It was supposed to be an hour.
This isn't epic, but it's a good question.
Okay, epic, the best question we've gotten ever.
Who should replace Daniel Craig as Bond? And they have a suggestion.
Who should replace Daniel Craig as Bond? The problem I have with these ones is that what they do well is that they don't go for A-listers. The guys they pick become A-listers. They're not necessarily totally obscure people. Daniel Craig had been in Tomb Raider before being selected, and was in a Matthew Vaughn movie before he was selected, Layer Cake. Pierce Brosnan had been on a show called Remington Steele. Timothy Dalton had been in Timothy Dalton was in Flash Gordon. Roger Moore was in a show called The Saint. So it's not like they picked obscure people, but they didn't pick A-listers. So that's where it's tricky, because people are, they should get Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy's not the kind of person that they don't cast A-listers like that for the role. And or like, get Idris Elba. Well, Idris Elba's getting a little bit high. Like he's been pretty high profile for a while, and getting a little bit old to be for the part. So I don't think I have anyone that kind of comes to mind, because I'd have to look at who kind of the up and coming British actors and up and coming TV British actors are to see, kind of select from that pool of people is who I would guess I would go for, and I don't have anyone that comes to mind. Who's their person?
They suggested Hiddleston.
Because they just don't seem to pick guys like that. They've never really picked guys that are that high profile going into it.
Well, and he's an excellent actor and has a great presence, but his physicality isn't what they normally pick for Bond.
Yeah, I mean, even you saw him in. Well, I don't know if you never saw Kong, but even in Kong, where he's a little bit more.
Watch that tonight?
It's 11:05, but I guess we could put it on. Even where he's a little bit more fit. Mm-hmm. He's not. He's like strong, skinny. He's not beefy. So, yeah. So I don't know. All right.
Someone said Kevin Feige is Happy Hogan. That's incorrect. That's
John Favreau's Happy Hogan. So anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in for this long live stream.
There's a few that have been here from the beginning.
Wow, so many, you guys that have stuck around for the whole time. Thank you guys so much. If you want a little bit of a tease of what the new space looks like, there it is right there. How helpful that is. In theory, that's where my Blu-ray shelves will be, and then I will be in front of that wall. So just a little bit of a tease of where things are headed. But it means the world to me that you guys care what I have to say, watch these videos, and want to spend time with me. And as I always say, I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. I really do. That's why I do this. That's why I try to respond to as many comments as I can. If you want, it's hard for me to respond to all the comments, but if you message me on Twitter, on Facebook, over on the Amino app, I get all that stuff, and it's a lot easier for me to respond to that stuff. Comments, I literally get about 1,000 comments a day, so I can't.
And I'm sorry again, we couldn't comment back during the stream. Normally I try to interact with y'all a little bit more, and I couldn't today.
And if I've been a little bit weird, it's because I am medicated, and that's why I've been coughing and all sorts of other things. And as soon as we end this, I'm going to go medicate myself a little bit more and put on Kong and fall asleep, is what's going to happen. Unless the ape keeps me awake. And that delicious Tom Hiddleston. On that note, thank you guys.